Welcome to part 14, selecting elements by class and ID. So thus far, we've selected elements by their tag name, which is typically too broad for a real application. So if you look down below, the tag name here is P. It could be div or h3 or any of the 100 plus HTML tags. But in real applications, we might have dozens and dozens of divs or paragraphs, and we might not want to select each and every one like this. So if we want to add certain styles to particular divs, then we need a different way of selecting these individual divs or paragraphs. So what's more common is that we'll select elements by their class or ID, which are global HTML attributes. So the class attribute is used to label multiple elements, and the ID attribute is used to label a single unique element. So in order to reference the class or ID in the CSS, we use a dot before the class name and a hashtag before the ID name. So we'll see an example of that below. All right, so take a look at this HTML. We have 3 paragraphs. We are going to use some common styling to all of the paragraphs like this. So they'll all have a 2-pixel dash blue border. The background, the text will be green, and the background color will be tan. Okay, so here are our 3 paragraph elements, all with the same exact style. Now let's say we want to style, say, the first 2 differently than the last 2, and say the first 2 are going to be part of some particular class. So we could say, we can give them, maybe we want them to have larger text. So we'll set the class variable or the class attribute to the same for each. So these will be both part of this class large. You'll see this turns green. This is Python syntax highlighting. So you need to actually just ignore any of these highlighting over here. It just pertains to Python itself. So it can be a little confusing when you're writing HTML in the notebook like this. All right, now to reference these 2, so to select them, right? So this is a different type of selector. This was the tag selector. The class selector, you do dot and then the class name. So that will select every single element that is given the name of class or the class of large. Okay, so let's just say we want to change the font size of these to much larger, maybe 25 pixels. So if we execute this, now these 2 elements, which are of class large, have a it's different size. And now let's say we want to uniquely identify this one, and we'll say small center. Maybe we want to make this a little bit smaller, and we want to center it. So for IDs, you don't use a dot, you use a hash symbol and then the name of the ID. That's how you select it. And yeah, this is unfortunate. It looks like it's commented out, and that's because the hash symbol is a comment in Python. So that's just the the Python syntax highlighting. This is very valid CSS. So let's say we want the font size here to be smaller. Let's just say maybe 8 pixels, and we want to center it. So we'll say text align center like this. And so we have it much smaller, and it is centered like the text is centered like this. Okay, so that's how this is a much more common way of adding CSS to an application. In the HTML itself, you label your elements by either the class or ID attribute, and then in the CSS, you reference or select those particular elements with either dot and the class name or hashtag and this hash symbol and the ID name. Okay, so that's it for selecting elements by class and ID.